Hey guys, it's been a few weeks since my last upload. Before the DLC came out, I decided to start a hunt that I believed would take me well into 2024. However, as you could probably see by the thumbnail and the fact that I've actually uploaded for once, I've completed this hunt relatively quick. All the footage I've used in this video was before DLC 1 had come out, and that's why the camera is still quite good in other places and why I was able to get some cinematic shots throughout the video. Anyway, I decided to do a coveted marked shiny hunt, something I've seen many others try and fail at. The premise is, you want to acquire a specific mark on a shiny Pokemon of your choice, which adds an extra level of difficulty to your hunt. What Pokemon did I decide to go for, I hear you ask? I decided on the big man himself, Dondozo. Ever since I saw his shiny, I really wanted one. And once I heard about the size marks being awarded to gigantic and tiny Pokemon, I knew what I had to do. So I decided to do a marked shiny hunt for a gigantic Dondozo, and here's how that went. Prior to all the pain that was about to ensue, me and Breloom decided the best method to hunt Dondozo would be through outbreaks, since I wouldn't be able to use the water encounter boosts while hunting. This would be seen as I couldn't have both shiny boost and encounter boost and Humungo boost all in the same sandwich. I had to choose between 3 different boosts, and so I had to choose shiny and Humungo, which meant an outbreak would have been the best way to ensure I was seeing lots of Dondozo. In order to influence the outbreaks, I created a water encounter boost sandwich and started rolling for outbreaks. This can be done quite easily. All you have to do is stand still, open your Switch settings, go to date and time, and then spam A through the time. You don't even have to change it. Once you reopen the game, you will see that all of the outbreaks have been reset, and then you just rinse and repeat until you find your target. After around 20 minutes of resetting, I'd found mine. With Big Dondozo in my sights, I gathered up Breloom and the others and headed towards the pack of them, and started to knock out 60. As most of you probably know by now, knocking out 60 Pokemon in outbreaks give you the best shiny chance. When combined with Shiny Charm and a Shiny Boost sandwich, finding a shiny can take minutes. However, finding a marked shiny is not as easy. In order to try and find a Pokemon that would be classified as gigantic, or the biggest it can possibly be, I needed a Humungo power boost. Therefore, I created this shiny sandwich here, which gave me both the shiny and Humungo boosts. Initially, I thought that picnic resetting on this cliff would be smart, but it wasn't working out too fast, and a lot of the encounters would end up being land spawns, and I didn't want to end up with a random shiny that I didn't really want. Therefore, I decided to go down and join my brethren in the water, and swim around them and try to despawn them at a quicker rate, which ended up being the much more viable method. In addition to that, it may look like I am really uncoordinated when swimming in this game, but because of the location being the Lag Lake and the performance of the game in this area, it meant that dodging was extremely difficult. After the first sandwich had come and gone with no success of even a regular shiny Dondozo, never mind the marked one I was looking for, I made my next sandwich. As you can see here, my dodging skills had seemed to increase a little bit, and it was still taking a little while for any shiny Pokemon to appear. It had soon turned dark and I was getting desperate just to see any shiny. The Slowpoke had started playing tricks on me as I thought they could be shiny, but to no avail. I ended up wasting quite a lot of time just auto-battling them whenever I saw them, as I was terrified of missing out on a shiny. However, after another 5 minutes of keeping my eyes peeled, I spotted the golden gargantuan floating in front of me. I found this female Dondozo at level 53, and she wasn't an easy catch. After putting her to sleep and throwing a luxury ball at her, I captured my first shiny of the quest and my first ever shiny Dondozo. Seen as we were hunting water types, the saying, "when it rains it pours," couldn't have been more accurate. Within the span of 30 seconds, I'd spotted my next target, this one being another female Dondozo, and this time being level 52. It did put up a little bit more of a fight than the first one, but it finally relented, and I caught it in another luxury ball. After catching the first 2, I checked my sandwich timer and I had around 4 minutes remaining, and decided to make the most of it and see if I could find anything else. As the timer continued to tick down, I thought the odds of finding another shiny this sandwich would have been very low. But lo and behold, the buzzer beater Dondozo came from the depths. Being yet another female, this time at level 50, I'd soon run out of luxury balls and I had to resort to an ultra ball in order to catch this one. And that was the last shiny encounter for my second sandwich. Now, the reason why this hunt is so difficult. It's not enough just to catch a shiny Dondozo, now I have 3 of them. But they might not be any good depending on what their size is. In order to determine the size of a Pokemon, although you could probably eyeball it, or maybe look at the height and weight stats, there's a really easy way to tell if it's gigantic or not. All you have to do is fly over to Messagoza and visit this lady and her Pachirisu. After talking with her, you can check your Pokemon's size and determine if you got the mark or not, through if she says it's gigantic or tiny, which can also be awarded a mark. Before we get into that though, let's check the numbers going forward. We need to kind of know what we're dealing with. Before starting this hunt, I didn't look up any of the shiny odds or the odds of any of this happening, so I needed to do a little bit of the maths. Finding a shiny from an outbreak with the charm nets you a cool shiny odds of 1 out of 512, or the same odds as the Masuda method. The odds of finding a gigantic Pokemon, being the largest of its size with no base power, is around 1 out of 16,512. I was able to find this information through the help of this redditor here, who posted all of their findings with no Humungo power calculated in. However, going off of what Cerebi states, saying that Humungo power adds an extra 21 rolls to the pot, meaning the real number is 22 out of 16,512, or 1 out of 750. This means that you'd have a 1 out of 750 chance with a Humungo Boost level 3 sandwich of finding the triple XL Pokemon or a gigantic Pokemon. Still not great odds. Now here's the best part. Considering that they're both 1 out of and they're not direct odds, you need to times them together in order to figure out the chance of both of them happening at the same time. And you need to times 1 out of 750 by 1 out of 512 in order to find the odds for a Humungo shiny from the outbreak. Therefore, by doing the method that I was doing, the chance of finding a gigantic shiny Dondozo is a whopping 1 out of 384,000. The odds of finding a full odds shiny in Generation 4 is 1 out of 8,000, or a little over 1 out of 8,000. I'd have better luck at finding quite a few shiny Pokemon in Generation 4, especially when the odds back then are only 1 in 8,000. Odds that used to kind of haunt me now kind of look okay when compared to this gargantuan odds of 1 in over 300,000. Which makes this hunt sound incredibly scary. That is the odds of finding a shiny gigantic Pokemon, based on the crude maths that I've done as a proclaimed C in higher maths. I couldn't get much higher than that, but you know, I've used the internet, I couldn't do that in a maths exam, but it's nothing to be proud of, so we're moving on. So then I had to check my 3 Dondozo to see if I'd somehow won the lottery. After calculating the odds, I really didn't have any hope that any of them would. Somehow, I had just rolled the perfect jumbo stats on the first shiny Pokemon that I had caught, being the level 53 female Dondozo that I showed you that I caught, and I'll show you the stat screen later, but I couldn't believe it at this point. The maths didn't seem to correlate with the fact I'd gotten it first time. The other 2 didn't have any marks and they weren't massive, although she did claim that they were both big. I did try to look online to see if the odds of my calculation had been wrong, but I couldn't find anything to say otherwise, although I'm open to being told that the shiny is not as rare, and I would firmly believe you. But here she is, in all of her gigantic glory. I tried to get some pictures with her, but she was just too big to fit in any selfie that I tried to take. Here she is in battle and at the camp with all her new friends. The battle was quite interesting because when you throw out a Pokemon at the front of your party, they sometimes don't sparkle, so I had to throw out Gallade and then change in. And here's the proof of the summary screen. I'll show you off the mark and just Dondozo in general. And then once you go to the last screen here, you'll see that she was a level 53 female caught at Castle Royal Lake in August. Yeah, I've got a small confession to make. I originally planned this video to come out in September, but I had recently started a new job and was given the opportunity to go abroad for a month or so at the beginning of my time with the company. Therefore, this video kind of slipped through the cracks, which is why you're only seeing it now. However, now that I'm back, I plan on being back in full swing and being back for a while. I'm not promising weekly uploads or even uploads that would land on some sort of schedule. What I do promise is to keep playing and to record anything I find interesting or document any hunts that I might be doing. Let me know what you think down below. If you have any hunt ideas or any questions about any of the hunts that I've been doing, please let me know. But with that guys, this has been my first ever marked shiny hunt. Have a nice day.